that tells us specifically to stay to avoid consumption of such substances. Maybe drugs, maybe anything that is intoxicating, something very addictive. We have to stay away from such substances. And the very common substance that we see around very casually, has especially literally now anywhere. Before in the Middle East it was a bit more controlled, but still is a bit more controlled. But is something that's widely available in most countries, and that's alcohol. Go to a supermarket, you see it. It's like buying water. That's how easy it is. And thankfully, by the grace of God, it's not like that here up until now. So hopefully it stays like that. Although it is still accessible to people. So it's a good reminder for us to constantly be aware of the negative aspects of consuming any such products or any such addictive substances. And the Quran gives us the clear reasons for it. So we are not just being told not to do it and then left it at there, but actually God gives us the guidance why He says that we shouldn't do it. So at any point, if someone asks, okay, you don't consume alcohol, why you don't consume alcohol? So you have a very good answer. It can be to your children, it can be to your friends, it can be to your colleagues, or anyone. We have to be fully aware why we are not consuming alcohol, why we are not supposed to consume alcohol or drugs or anything of that sort. In the appendix it says there is no compromise whatsoever regarding illicit drugs and alcoholic beverages. They are called abominations and the work of Satan. So plainly put, there's no compromise. There's no like I can have little or why not a little bit, why not, what's the big deal. There's no compromise in the Quran when it comes to such substances. It's very clear in the Quran that the Quran categorizes it as abominations of Iblis, of Satan. So if you want to have some fun with Satan, go ahead. But otherwise God says very clearly, you are with the opponent. This is something that the opponent, which is Iblis, uses to control you. He's controlling you. If you are into some sort of addictive substance, who is controlling you? Satan is controlling you. And what does that mean? That you're in Satan's kingdom. So you're exposed to a lot of problems. A lot of severe tests will come your way. You will have familial problems, relationship issues. Everything will happen because you are consuming substances which God says do not consume. So that's why the Quran calls it abominations and work of the Satan. So what is the work that Satan is doing? He uses these substances to control you, to make you do things that you shouldn't be doing, to destroy your relationships. Could be with your family, with your friends, with your any sort of very important relationships that you have. He will use these substances to control and create wedge between you and very important people in your life. And this is mentioned in Surah 5, verse 90, when God says, O you who believe, intoxicant and gambling, and the altars of idols, and the games of chance are abominations of the devil. You shall avoid them, that you may succeed. So our success as in not just as a submitter, but I believe in the material world and also in the hereafter, depends on staying away from such abominations. If a person is indulging in a lot of alcohol and this thing, what happens to him? Financially draining, the health is deteriorating. So even if he's a multi-millionaire, if his health deteriorates, then he has to invest in his health, and a lot of things will happen. A lot of things. Relationships tend to get bad. So if you're a person who's like indulging in drugs or alcohol or anything, the kind of people you will be interacting with will not be the righteous people, quite obviously. You're not going to be interacting with righteous people. They're going to invite you to do things which are worse than having a drink or having weed or whatever it is. People think, I want to try weed, but who are you exposing yourself to? You're exposing yourself to the most worst, totally out of control, totally godless people. Because God-fearing people will not indulge in such things. They will not. You won't find them in the bars, or you won't find them in anywhere else. They are not sitting there. No good person who believes in God will go to a bar and sit there. So if you consume stuff like that, you're going to be exposed to the wrong people. It's very natural. So what happens then when you're exposed to the wrong people? They will drag you down the path of Satan. Simple as that. So that's why there is a ripple effect when you consume substances. It's not just that you sit in a mountain somewhere and have something and then that's it. No, you will be connected with the wrong people. So that's why you're exposing yourself to a lot of problems when you consume substances. Satan is going to see you as a very easy target, because now you're addicted to this stuff. So now he just needs to drive you around. Go here, go there, do this, do that. And under the influence, you're going to do stuff which are totally prohibited by God. It doesn't stop with simply consuming intoxicants. They lead you to other major sins. That's why God calls it, that's the abomination and the work of Satan. You're just making it easy for Satan to drive you away from God. So that's why God says you shall avoid them, that you may succeed. So your success as a submitter, it depends on you staying away from these substances. No matter what your friends will say, what's the big deal? You know what's the big deal. It's going to drag you down the path of Satan. And God explains why. He doesn't leave it there. He says in the very next verse, the devil wants to provoke animosity and hatred among you. So it's very simple. It's about destroying your relationships. You have a spouse, and if you're a drinking person, the spouse and you are going to have a fight for sure. Because the devil is going to see that as an opportunity to drive them away. Wow, this is the perfect opportunity. I'm going to put some doubt in this person's mind. I'm going to put some doubt in that person's mind. And now they're going to fight each other. Or there's going to be some financial issues, and they're going to fight each other. Children towards their parents, if the child is a drug addict, they're not going to be very nice with the parents. You see, they're going to steal from the parents. They're going to do things which are unrighteous. They're going to hide things. They're going to do things, not just taking drugs, they're going to do other things to get the drug. Have very bad friendships, because maybe the drug dealer is also doing some other things. So to get the drug from him or her, the child or the teenager is going to do stuff which are totally unrighteous. So it's just going to get from bad to worse if you have connections with people. That's why substances lead you to people who are totally astray, totally consumed and controlled by the devil. So that's why God says the devil wants to provoke animosity and hatred among you through intoxicants and gambling, and to distract you from remembering God. So that's the biggest problem. One, your relationships will be in turmoil sooner or later, if it's just because you think, I don't have any issues, but that's just a matter of time. Eventually you will have turmoil in your relationships with someone or the other, maybe not the spouse, maybe someone else, but you will have problems. And so people are going to have hatred and animosity, jealousy, insecurity, everything is going to come. Because when you are a person who consumes alcohol, your spiritual state is always in the low. You're not going to be in a spiritual high, like, I'm thinking about God. No, because you're with the wrong people, you're going to the wrong places. So quite naturally, your mind is dominated by thoughts which are unrighteous. So when you're in a spiritual low, you're quickly angry. One small provocation and you are angry. And your patience is very low, because you're someone who consumes alcohol. So it's all going to go down. You're going to be in your most lowest spiritual state. So you're going to get angry. You're not going to think about God. You're going to get impatient. You may even get violent. You may think about doing things which are completely against God, having the wrong relationships, things like that. So the ultimate goal of Satan is to distract you from remembering God. So remembering God means what? Being aware of God, being aware of the most best things, being righteous, being reverent, being worshiping God, honoring your parents, not cheating, not hiding things, not committing adultery, fornication, nothing of that nature. That's remembering God. Because what keeps you away from sin? It's God. So if you're not in that state of mind, you are exposed to a lot of sins. So that's why God says that alcohol and other intoxicants will be used by Satan to drive you into that world of sin. He's going to use that as a tool to drive you. So basically you're giving the tool to Satan and say, mess me up, drive me away from paradise. So that's why God says, do not consume it, even little. No. Because you're putting yourself at major risk. Major risk. Because if you think about it scientifically, when you consume alcohol, what happens is that you have a dopamine release in it. It's a hormone that's released in your brain, which is a pleasure hormone. That when you take one glass of whatever alcohol, there's a release and you get a high, a little bit of a high. But after a while, it doesn't work because your body adapts. So even though you say, I'm going to just have once, like maybe a little bit, it never works. Because the next time you consume it, nothing happens. It's like drinking water, you see, because your body has already adapted to it. So you need to up your dosage. So you go to the next drink so you can get the same dopamine release, same hormonal release, that pleasure, that high. It's with anything, even watching TV, It's the same thing. There is a release of a hormone which gives us the pleasure feeling, like the excitement, or even the food. You eat one piece of cake, you think, I'll just settle. But if it gives you that high, you want more. So this is basically what makes things addictive to us. So that thing it's just a process. It's just a matter of time. You go from one drink to 2, 3, 4, and then you become an alcoholic. Or you stay like that. You take a break, and again, it becomes a habit, at least, even if you don't become totally addicted to it. So the whole idea is to distract you from God and drive you into major sins. There are people because of, there's domestic violence because of alcohol, wife beating, and especially in my state, it became a big problem, and the government had to actually stop a particular kind of alcohol. So it was, so domestic violence can erupt from it. Infidelity can happen between couples because one person is exposed to alcohol, so he or she is not going to the right places for it, and in the influence they are prone to committing sins. So infidelity can happen. That will ruin relationships, completely destroy it. Kids will be in a broken family. Financial distress can happen if you're an average person and you don't have that kind of money and you're indulging in this behavior. Significant amount of your income goes for these intoxicants, and that will cause financial distress to your family. So and also we have another aspect is the contact prayers. If you're a person who's consuming alcohol or intoxicant, contact prayers is never going to work for you. It's never going to work for you. Because it requires that you wake up before sunrise. It requires that you sleep early so you can wake up early before sunrise and do your fajr, do your zuhr, asr or maghrib or anything. If you are a person who has a habit of consuming alcohol, your sleep will be out of whack. You'll sleep more, you will eat more, everything is going to go haywire. So how can you have an order in your life? It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So you have to really avoid such intoxicants. If you are a person who's taking weed, sometimes you're high. How can you wake up for Fajr? It's not going to happen. So basically, all your contact prayers, you may do one or two, but it will not work. You won't be able to be consistent. So this is the basic idea behind intoxicant. It puts you in a lower state of mind, and God says that Satan will expose you to more sins, and he will also drive you away from remembering God and also observing your contact prayers. Tub Allah, repent. Alhamdulillah, shadu la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Praise be to God. I bear witness that there is no God but God, and He has no partners. The Quran also teaches us about modesty, how men and women have to be aware of being righteous, preserving themselves and not having any sort of illicit relationships, any sort of unrighteous activities. It's especially for young people. God has taught us in many verses that we have to maintain chastity and preserve ourselves for our future partners. We should never indulge in certain activities. This is also a part of the appendix. It's a very important topic. That's why it's included in the appendices. The appendix 34 says, sons and daughters of the true believers must be taught that their happiness throughout their lives depends on following God's law and preserving their chastity. This means that they must keep themselves for their spouses only and never allow anyone else to touch them in a sexual manner. Today's society is replete with powerful temptations. In America's society of the 80s, even parents start talking about boyfriends for their daughters and girlfriends for their sons. When they reach their teens, many parents even supply birth control means to their children. An alarming percentage of teenagers are sexually active, even though they are not physiologically mature and without any moral limitations. So this is a very it's a reality, something that we can see with our own eyes. Millions of illicit pregnancies and tragedies associated with them, plus millions of tragic abortions happen every month in the USA. Among the results of this moral breakdown, unwanted and unsupported children, delinquent and irresponsible fathers, criminals who have no regard for people's lives or properties, millions of social misfits, incurable genital herpes, incurable genital warts, devastating syphilis, and all those diseases, and new diseases never known before. See, it just goes from bad to worse. What most people do not know is that this moral breakdown costs them dearly throughout their lives. So this is why God says you have to preserve your purity, your chastity. It is very important. You indulge in any kind. There's a lot of temptations out there. You just put on your TV and then that's all you see. But God says very clearly that we have to remain righteous because it's for our own good. Because we get exposed again to the wrong people. We pick up behaviors that are detrimental for our life here. A lot of addictive behaviors are coming out. A lot of psychological problems are coming out because of abuse of social media, abuse of content online. There's a lot of content which is bad for you. Absolutely, totally bad for you. You open your WhatsApp, you open your Facebook, people post all kinds of unrighteous stuff. It's fully, I don't think there's much good there. Most of it is something that is bad for your spiritual state. So if you have people who are not posting the best things, unfriend them. Because you don't want to open your phone and the next thing you see is something very unrighteous. You see? So it is very important for us to maintain that important state of mind. We're always thinking about purity and about thinking about God, not indulging in unrighteous activities. You may think that I'm not, it's there, but I'm not doing anything. It doesn't matter. You have to avoid because you're putting this stuff into your brain, And nowadays it's a brain control that's going on, just so that you can buy stuff. Anything you just look up, the next thing it pops up on your phone. Buy this. So it's like a manipulation that's going on your brain. And a lot of people have a lot of platforms nowadays. They have all these things like Facebook and WhatsApp and social media or Instagram and all those. There's nothing good. Very little good is going on there. It's just about people who are narcissistic. They just want to put up pictures and get validation. That's it. So that's what is going on. It doesn't mean that it's haram or something like that, not use social media at all, but we should use it for the best reasons. And that's why morality is very important. Being appropriately dressed, not exposing too much, because that's what we see everywhere. God has given us clear instructions for that. Men and women should lower their gaze. How can you lower your gaze when you open a Facebook app and the first thing you see is some horrible picture of someone, you see? So God says lower your gaze in the Quran. Which means, why is God saying lower your gaze? Traditional Muslims think that you have to walk like this. But that's not what Quran is saying. Lower your gaze means to avoid staring and having bad thoughts. We should control our thoughts. It's all about your thoughts. When you're looking inappropriately at a person, your thought, what we're not simply looking, right? Something is going in your head. You're thinking something, and that's the reason why God says lower your gaze, because it will affect your mind. And when your mind is affected, it will affect your salah. It will distract you. It becomes a big distraction. And unfortunately, we know that social media is a major distraction. It distracts us from work. It distracts us from our salah. We're probably just not looking at anything, but we're probably chatting with someone to just give them a hard time. Oh, he said something about me, I have to write something back. But your salah time is there, but you're spending time on this. So guilty as charged. So I'm not saying that I'm not doing this, but this is what we are all getting into. You see, now when we become more aware of it, we should start reminding each other, like we should control it, keep your phones away, focus on good things, put a zikr, or listen to, even if it's a music, listen to something that's good. So this is, and if you have children, if you have teenagers growing up, it's very important that we tell them that, because the kind of stuff that's out there is totally dangerous. It's very toxic for the mind. A lot of kids are developing insecurities. They don't like themselves because of the stuff that they're watching on social media. I'm not good enough. I don't look like these kids. I don't look like that girl or that man. I don't have that kind of body. I don't have that kind of face. Maybe there's something wrong. There's a lot of insecurity people. So when insecurity is developing with them, they tend to withdraw from normal society. They will withdraw. And this will have another effect on them. It will make them feel insecure all the time. They will become toxic. So these have issues with the brain, with the mind. So we have to, as parents, teach our kids not to expose our kids to this kind of stuff. Makes them feel insecure or even addicted to it. When they see other people, now let me also start doing it, and then we start doing it. There was a phase for me also. I would like to put more pictures and keep doing it, and then eventually I started thinking, like, what is this? It doesn't make any sense. Then I stopped. So, but more younger, as you mature, you start to realize this is just joke. But kids don't know this. They're going to pick up that and continue throughout their adult life with this sort of narcissism. So it's a distraction if we don't use it properly, and it could also lead them to many unrighteous activities. So maintaining morality and also guarding our chastity is very important. It's very, very much mentioned in the Quran. And God says in Surah 124 is that when we violate God's laws, we have a miserable life. And this is it says, as for the one who disregards my message, he will have a miserable life, and we resurrect him on the day of resurrection blind. So when God says, do not guard yourself, maintain chastity, do not indulge in unrighteous activities, it's up to us to follow the message and avoid these things. We need to look at things that lead us to this kind of behavior, and then we stop at refrain from doing those things, so that we have a good life. It's important for us. If you do unrighteous activities, you have a miserable life. That's what the Quran teaches us. So may God guide us in the best way to make the best decisions, to use all the tools that are available at our disposal in the most appropriate and righteous way. May God help us stay away from intoxicants, drugs, and all the other substances that God has clearly prohibited in the Quran, and may God protect our children and all the believers from these substances.